Welcome back to the show. We have an amazing episode with a student of mine, Brooklyn Stevens. You all have been asking me, what does it take to succeed in economics? This interview with Brooklyn is amazing. She's going to detail some things that you need to do as an econ major, how you can leverage your experience at your university and build your resume. She's going to give you some tips, some valuable action items that you could apply to. Enjoy the show. So, Brooklyn.
Yes.
I have a long list of questions.
Oh, okay.
I asked on Instagram today, and thanks for sharing it. Asked the folks what did they want to know about you. Let me just tell you how many questions I got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10.
Wow.
So we have 10
That's
questions.
really good.
Before we get to these questions,
Okay.
my question to you is, why do you think so many people are interested in knowing what you think?
That's a good question. I think that at the CE, we have been hosting these professional development meetings and we see each other very often. And so there's people that are in the CE, but then there's a lot of econ and business people outside of the CE that come to the meetings and see the people that run it, the people that are involved, and they want to know what they actually do.
Okay. So you think this curiosity is because people have been reading your LinkedIn posts?
Maybe. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Speaking about LinkedIn, you had a really amazing experience over at the Econ games where, wasn't there somebody that knew you from LinkedIn or something of that?
Yeah, so someone actually knew me. There's a couple instances of people that kept coming up to me at the Econ games, and they were like, hey, you're Brooklyn Stevens, right? And I was like, yeah, how do you know me? And they're like, oh, I see your LinkedIn post. And then that prompted Cornelius and Blake and Sam to be kind of having this inside joke all the weekend that I was a local celebrity.
Okay.
There was also another instance of a student from UK knew me because someone at a career fair, employer at a career fair actually came up to him and said, oh, you're in the Econ games, do you know Brooklyn Stevens? Because that employer was here at NKU at a career fair that I went to, and we talked about the Econ games. And he remembered me by name from my LinkedIn as well. So that was another instance of me being a local celebrity.
Well, that's perfect, because one of the things that we do at the Center for Economic Education is teach students how to develop their professional LinkedIn profile, but I would go as far as building their thought leadership or brand, if you may. And today our goal is to talk about your CE experience. And if you could summarize your experience at the CE in, I won't say one word because that's a lot
Thank
of pressure, but a sentence or two. If you look back and could summarize it, what would it be?
I think I would say that the CE has taken me from being a task-oriented individual to a person who is confident in her ability to be a problem solver and a thought leader and just a leader in general.
Okay, that's powerful.
Yeah.
And as your advisor, I'm honored that the CE could do something like that. The question, and I bet everybody's asking, is how does it do that? Like, what happened throughout this trajectory that you went from task-oriented to the way you describe yourself right now?
I think it's a combination of mentorship, good mentorship specifically, and also just someone building up your confidence and giving you kind of the steps to get where you're going. So, for example, I started out with task-oriented jobs, I guess you could say, and then over time, you kind of built my confidence up, like, hey, why don't you try this? Let's try this as a next step. So we always had an end goal in mind, but we broke it down to be like, this week we're going to accomplish this. And it was more of how do we solve a problem? How do we get the word out of financial literacy? How do we spread financial literacy? It was these big overarching problems, but we broke it down into smaller steps. And that process, I think, just over time, built my confidence and then shaped me to think of things as a big picture.
Great. So when you look back, not to get emotional here,
Oh, gosh,
because we have graduation coming up.
Yeah.
How many days till graduation?
I don't know. 44.
44 days. 44 days. Your
Oh,
undergraduate
gosh.
experience is going to be behind you.
Yeah.
As we are recruiting right now new Center for Economic Education fellows. They are where you were a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for them? Like, go back to that a year ago.
Yeah.
What do you think you needed to hear?
Well, it took me about 3 or 4 times of you telling me about the position for me to even bite on it. So my first thing would be you need to take the leap. You need to jump. Because even if you don't see the benefit of it, it's there and it's in the people that are at the CE right now. You can see it through people, but sometimes it's hard for you to visualize yourself in their position. So you see them as like, oh my gosh, they're doing such amazing things. I could never do that. That's a valid feeling because I felt that way. But I would say take the leap and kind of believe in yourself for even just a second, just to take the leap, and it's going to pay off. So even though they seem like they're ahead of you, they were in your position at one point, and you have such a support system here that it's not going to feel like things are out of reach all the time. Like you're going to get to where you're going.
So just take the leap, as you said.
Yes.
Something you said that I really want to figure out because I'm struggling with this. Why does it take students 3 to 4 times of being invited to apply for a job to actually apply? Because I'm going through this right now.
Yeah.
There's 3 to 4 students that I've been trying to tell them that they'd be great candidates without me saying, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some reluctance. What's that reluctance?
I can't speak for everyone, but I think for me, it was just I didn't know what my job would look like at the CE.
Okay.
And it was a confidence thing. I didn't have confidence in myself, but I think that I couldn't see what the day-to-day life would be like at that job. And I like certainty. I think we all like certainty. And I think it's that uncertainty of what will I be working on? How will this benefit me? How will I grow? Like all of those things, because you can do so many different things at the CE. So it's really hard for us to tell people, hey, you could do this, you could do this.
Yeah.
But it was hard for me to see that.
So if I wanted to recruit the future CE fellows, one thing that I could do to improve this is to make it easier for them to see what the day-to-day activities are. And okay,
I would think so.
I could easily increase the information here to make it less uncertain. So you started as a CE fellow May of
21.
All right.
Yeah.
What was your first task? Do you remember?
I think originally you kind of just told me to learn as much as I could about financial literacy. And then also I had to take some data from the Econ Games surveys and create a report. But I think the first task was learning more about financial literacy and like reading everything I could about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these were journal articles or?
Yeah, most of it was journals. I read one of your papers and just the up-and-coming research about financial literacy to get used to the jargon and the terms used so I can be familiar with it.
Okay. And you filled the role of what we call research fellow. And what did summer look like for you?
Summer I was basically just deep in data. That's how I would
but
describe
you love that,
it.
right?
But yeah, I was intimidated by it for sure. But going through your Eco 394 class, I got to learn how to clean data in Stata. That was really valuable because then the summer I spent cleaning the National Financial Capabilities Study and just learning what was in that data set. So that was my summer, pretty much. Trying to come up with questions, things that interested me personally.
And it was all iterations of the NFCS. It wasn't just one year.
It was all 4, yes.
And how did summer end?
So I can't remember when I actually came up with a good question, but I think it was towards the end of summer. Summer kind of ended with me saying, okay, I have a question. I'm going to hold on to it and we're going to go further on it and we're going to dive deeper and we're going to create something that's a research project.
Okay. And that question was what? Do you remember it?
We're
going way back to August now.
It was how does financial anxiety connect to financial literacy. And we titled the research paper Money Keeps Me Up at Night, an analysis of financial anxiety in the United States.
And you presented that at the Kentucky Economic Association.
I did.
Did you believe you'd be able to present I told you in May
You did.
you're going to present a paper at the KEAs, and you
Yeah.
said, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
So what happened for you to actually believe that you're able to present at the KEAs? One second. Not
Okay.
only did you present at the Kentucky
Yeah.
Economic Association, but,
I won the best paper award.
all right.
Yeah.
So thank you for trusting me.
You're
But what
welcome.
was the hesitation? What was the, and don't tell me imposter syndrome. There was something else. That kept you from believing that you're able to produce a paper.
I had never done it before.
Okay.
I'm going to say it was imposter syndrome.
Okay.
It was there for sure. But I think it was more that I just had never done that before. And it seemed like such a huge task to begin with. And I was like, this is going to be so much work. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what econometrics even means, and what even is a regression.
Yeah.
So I knew what it was. I had been in the class, but actually applying the things you learn in class, it's a little daunting.
So you knew it in theory.
Yeah, in
Not to knock
theory.
our education.
Oh, of
You
course.
Knew it.
I
You just
knew it.
hadn't
I knew
applied
it. I knew it. I just hadn't put it into practice.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the paper itself didn't seem like a huge feat. I think it was going somewhere and presenting in front of academics and economists that know more about economics than you do. Yeah.
So that's really important because the Kentucky Economic Association is going to be here in Northern Kentucky in October. And I'm hoping that we would have more of our students participate. So 2 to 3 students is my goal to work with this summer on developing a research project and presenting it. That means we probably need to host an event or a panel on what to expect when you're presenting. How is it navigating in a conference?
Yeah.
Yep.
That would
Okay.
be awesome.
All right. So I'm going to call you to invite you to lead that panel in September.
Okay.
Speaking about fall, what are you doing after you graduate?
I'm going to University of Kentucky for their 1-year MBA program.
Okay. And that starts
June 6th.
June 6th. Was graduate school always, like when you started at NKU as a first-year freshman student, was graduate school on your radar?
Yes, but in a different form. I actually wanted to be a lawyer. So I have a pre-law minor with my economics because I thought I wanted to go to law school. And I've taken all the classes, and I love the classes. I like the content. But once I got into economics, I was like, wow, I really love this. And I completely just kind of did a 180.
Okay. And now you're doing an MBA.
Yes.
In the fall, starting at UK. All right, let's bring it back to NKU, and let's think about you being a mentor for future students. There's several questions that came through Instagram, so I'm going to start asking some of them.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
And we won't go too far in each one of these, but we'll play like, what's it called? Rapid fire?
Sure.
How do you cope with school stress?
It's always going to be there, so don't think that school stress ever goes away. I'm a task-oriented kind of like, I'm an organizer, I'm a planner, so I keep a planner. That's my Bible for school, you could call it that. I write everything down, my due dates, and being organized and having a clean study space is really beneficial for me. So that's my number one.
Some of these questions are deep. What is your why, and how does it influence your actions?
That's a
I like
great
that one.
question.
Yeah.
I'd love to know who asked that question.
I will tell you later on.
My why. I think my why is that I want to influence positive change.
Okay. That's
or
it.
help people.
It's not to
Yeah.
make money.
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, money's nice.
Yeah.
But no. I think I just want to influence people, things, companies in a positive direction to help people.
And do you find yourself doing things today that are influencing or in line with your why?
I think so. I think it's kind of subconscious. It's like intrinsic to me. I feel like I do it subconsciously. A non-academic example is that I love the gym. I love fitness. And I have been encouraged by you and other people to start sharing that on social media. And I've gotten so much positive feedback from it, and which I'm so thankful for, because I want to influence people to lead healthier lifestyles, to take care of themselves mentally and physically. And for me, that's the gym. So I want to show people that journey and hopefully make the gym kind of less intimidating and more welcoming for people.
Perfect. You can't mention your Instagram and not throw out your handle. Go ahead, shameless
It's
plug.
at BROO.KLYN.
All right. Follow. And now you started adding like meal prep.
Yeah, I love trying new recipes. So I actually just posted a reel.
Yeah.
It's really good.
My favorite comment to your reel,
Yeah,
I think it's from your mom.
it was. It was.
And she's like, oh, so you're cooking. Why don't you cook like this when you're home?
And I told her that she's such a good cook that I just don't want to get in the way.
Shout out to mom.
Yes.
This is a really good question because it's something that we've invested in a lot, and I think we need to talk about it. How important is finding community in college?
So important. We definitely have invested in that a lot just as a center itself, but I think me as well, the other fellows. When I was a freshman, I think one of the biggest regrets I have was I didn't have a community here in the College of Business. I was kind of just like skating by, going to my classes, going back to my dorm. I wasn't really a part of anything. And that community feeling, I think you build your confidence, you have people to talk about life with, talk about professional development. There's a lot of things that just aren't taught in the classroom. And with the community here, we're now pulling that into this space. So, hey, how do you build your LinkedIn? How do you build your brand? How do you set boundaries? Those are emotional intelligence. Those are all things that we're covering just this semester. And it's something that is so valuable, but it's not in normal classroom settings.
Perfect. 2 more questions, and then we'll go back to regular conversation. How do you tell your story on your resume?
That's good. I think that your resume is quick, like bullet point items, and it's hard to it gets you in the door. And I think that's when your resume should be amazing. It gets you in the door. But in the interview process, I think is where you can really sell yourself and kind of tell your story more than what's on the resume. So the resume, I feel like it says the what of what you're doing. It's what you're doing, what you're involved in. But in the interview process, you can explain the why and how you got to that point. And you can also do that in a cover letter too. A cover letter gives you more flexibility to talk about what you're really interested in and what they should look for on the resume, or what stands out, what's important to you. So for example, the Econ games is on my resume, but it's not explained. It's not like a paragraph on my resume. You normally don't have enough room for that. But on my cover letter, I explain that in more depth and more detail. And that really draws people in.
Yeah. Actually, I would love to see an updated copy of your resume because I haven't looked at it in a while. and we'll share it on this video so people could see how you've formatted your resume. All right, one more question.
Okay.
What's the worst part of working with Dr. A?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think
It's okay. You could be honest.
I don't
It's
know.
fine.
Like, I'm literally trying to think about it, and I think we're different in some ways. Like, I'm very detail oriented, and I think you throw a lot of, what about this? What about this? Like, you have so many ideas, which is amazing, but sometimes it can be overwhelming for people like me who need a path and structure. But I think that's why the center like works well together, because we're all very different, but we have different strengths and we kind of help each other out in them. So I will be the one like taking notes, making sure things are followed through with, but you're the one that comes up with the big ideas.
100%. One of the best things of working with you is I know no detail will be overlooked. So you've actually improved the activities of the center because you've kept us always on track. I'm an ideation person. I can come up with ideas, but then you have to follow through. And a lot of the projects that we started this year, excuse me, have been completed because of your effort. So I really appreciate you doing all those great things.
That means
I
a
won't
lot.
get emotional on here. We'll wait for graduation day,
Yeah.
which is in 44 days. But truly, thank you for everything that you've done for the center.
Thank you.
All right. So one last thing, I started with it, and we'll end with it.
Okay.
We said sentence, but now one word. How would you explain to Asia, to Allison, what this next year is going to look like for them and in RO as CE fellows?
The first word that comes to my mind is growth. And I think that's kind of like basic, generic, but I really mean it. There's so much growth that happens, and it's not just academically or professionally, it's personally. There's so many technical things that you learn at the CE that are amazing. Stata, PowerPoint, Excel, I mean, all of that's amazing, but I think we can't overlook the soft skills, because those are things that are going to set you apart in the workforce or in graduate school. Is how do you talk to people? How do you do something like this and be comfortable? How do you succeed in an interview? How do you learn how to be flexible in your speech when talking to an economist versus talking to an analyst? Those are very different ways you talk to people. And those are things that I had no idea about before I started here. So yes, writing a research paper is amazing, but if you can articulate what you learned and how you learned it and why it matters, then that's what really is happening here, and that's what I'm so proud of and excited about and thankful for. So you're going to grow, but not necessarily in the way that you think.
If I could add two things, be coachable, because you were extremely coachable in the sense that you always wanted to know how to do it. You would do something and say, is there a better way to do it? And then the second thing, and this is a trait that is really important, is to be able to admit that you need help.
Yes.
I think at first you were hesitant to do that. When you were task oriented, you would spend a lot of time, especially with Stata. It's like, I got to figure out my own way, and then I'll go, which I appreciate because you've done your due diligence. But at the same time, there's a point where you get to where you're like, let me just ask for help. So future CE fellows, coachable, ask for help, and take on those opportunities. I mean, you were resistant to the KEAs just because, not because you didn't want to do it, but because you didn't think you had the foundation to develop on. But once you believed in the possibility, you went 100% with it.
Yeah, and I think through the process, I didn't even up to the KEAs, I was like, is this really going to happen? I mean, you have those doubts. And so once it was over, it's like, wow, I just did that, and it was amazing. And then you have to take a second to reflect on what you learned. So even though you have doubts along the way, it can still happen, and it'll be great.
Perfect. All right, so this was fantastic. I've always wanted to document our conversations. And I think future students, CE fellows, would all benefit from knowing your story. I'll make sure to include your Twitter handle and Instagram handle, so anybody that's interested in learning more about Brooklyn Stevens could follow her there. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Anytime. We should do this more often.
Yes.
And actually, this might be the beginning of a new thing. I think I want to start a student series.
I think that'd be awesome.
Who should we have next on the...
I don't know.
Y'all can't see him, but he's in this room. Cornelius. Cornelius is going to be next. Cornelius, are you up for it? Yeah. All right, Cornelius is next.
Yeah.
Thank you all for watching. See you next week on the next episode.